So I finally finished reading Braiding Sweetgrass. It took way too long. I had this book for, I think, maybe over a month now. I'm actually really surprised that I was able to get it renewed because this book has like 20 holds. I had to renew it once because 3 weeks was not enough because I was reading my other book, Cast by Isabel Wilkerson, which I'm still not finished with yet. And I had to basically suspend all of my other holds because I was like, wow, I'm not going to finish any of these books. So I finally got around to finishing this one. I do think if I really hunkered down and like focused on this book, I could probably finish it in like a week, maybe less than a week. I think I was really confused going into this book because I thought it was going to be about, well, it is about indigenous wisdom, but I thought it was going to be about like the specific practices and like tribal rituals and things like that. But instead, I also got like partial memoir of her life, of the author's life, as well as like just random climate facts and then like botany facts. And it was kind of everywhere. And I kind of did not like that. I was really lost for the first, I want to say like 70% of the book, which is like majority of the book. But I did really like the ending. So I feel like my relationship to this book is very like enemies to lovers trope. I really did not appreciate the disorganized structure of this book because it is one of those books where you can just open it to whatever page and you could start from there and you're not really missing out on much. Like there's no linear plot, so you could really just do that. And there's like little gems of wisdom like in each chapter, so you could do that and still get a good time. But there were some good chapters in here. I can't find it specifically, but I know there was a specific chapter where she pretty much lays out the entire like Thanksgiving address. It's almost like a chant, I guess, or like a little prayer that all the people in her like committee or something like that, like they say before they start something. I might be getting this so wrong, but there's that. And then the last maybe maybe like 4 chapters of the book, that's when for me it started getting really good. I wrote down a bunch of quotes that I really liked. I also feel like it got good at the end because I actually started paying attention to what I was reading. I feel like for the first couple of parts I was kind of like, wait, I feel like I'm just reading a textbook. Like I feel like I just have to get through this book. The first chapter was really interesting because it was like an actual adapted oral tradition story about Sky Woman and how like the world was created, and I thought that was interesting because I believe in a different creation story, but it's cool to see different stories and traditions. Anyway, the last couple of chapters, there were a lot of quotes that I liked. They're kind of long, so too bad. We restore the land and the land restores us. She does a lot of this. What do you call that? Like A plus B, B plus A? I don't know what that literary technique is called, but okay, I can't even read my own handwriting. I'm just gonna read it straight from the book because why? This happens every single time. Even when I'm like trying to read report from my own handwriting, I'm like, I don't know what I said. Okay, this is much better. I'm reading from page 327. A 1994 statement from the Indigenous Environmental Network puts it best. Western science and technology, while appropriate to the present scale of degradation, is a limited conceptual and methodological tool. It is the head and hands of restoration implementation. Native spirituality is the heart that guides the head and the hands. Cultural survival depends on healthy land and a healthy, responsible relationship between humans and the land. The traditional caregiving responsibilities which maintained healthy land need to be expanded to include restoration. Ecological restoration is inseparable from cultural and spiritual restoration, and is inseparable from the spiritual responsibilities of caregiving and world renewal. And then she goes on to say, what if we could fashion a restoration plan that grew from understanding multiple meanings of land? Land as sustainer, land as identity, land as grocery store and pharmacy, land as connection to our ancestors, land as moral obligation, land as sacred, land as self. I think it really got me with the land as grocery store and pharmacy. That's like my dream. My dream is that we would be in a society where we are able to return to nature in that way and have it provide for us in such a pure distilled way without like all of the extra processing that we now see, like in our foods, in our products. Sometimes I think about that and I'm like, oh my God, like that's so far gone. It's impossible. But that's like a dream of mine that I have. And same thing with medicine in Western medical setting. I see symptom management, symptom treatment all the time. And I just think like we have so many structures for tertiary care, but we do not have nearly as many preventative primary care that would prevent those things from happening. And it just goes into the system of like, it's really expensive to be healthy, like to eat well, to be able to have the time of day to exercise and take care of your skin, take care of your health and your sleep. Like, you can't do that if you're working multiple jobs, trying to feed your family, living paycheck to paycheck. It's just not sustainable. And I think unless that social structure is kind of fixed, like it's kind of impossible for us to really have sustainable health in that way. Otherwise, we're just going to keep having chronic illness forever. Another quote that I really liked was, restoring land without restoring relationship is an empty exercise. It is relationship that will endure and relationship that will sustain the restored land. Therefore, reconnecting people and the landscape is as essential as reestablishing proper hydrology or cleaning up contaminants. It is medicine for the earth. I will be the first to say I'm not the type of person who really pays too much attention to land in this sort of way that Kimmerer describes. I mean, the number of times she said reciprocity in this book, if you took a shot, you'd be dead of alcohol poisoning. But I do think that she has a point here where, like, you can take care of land, you can take care of, like, the physical aspect of things, but I feel like the heart is really when people understand their role and their relationship to the earth. I think a lot of my focus in my life it tends to be relationship to self and relationship to other people. It doesn't really focus too much on relationship to like other non-human beings. But I think this book really got me to think about how those things are still intertwined. Our relationship to ourselves and to others is also very tied to our relationship with our environment. You know, like there's something special about like gardening together, like tending land together. And we really don't have opportunities like that anymore. Like we're such an isolated society that I feel like you really lose both. You really lose relationship to land and you lose relationship to yourself and to other people in that way because everyone is just focusing on themselves. And that was another concept that she sort of touched on in this book. The idea that the society we live in right now is very consumerist and very about what we can get, what we can consume, what we can take, what we can conquer. It has very little emphasis on giving. And I've really examined that too in my own life and how, especially when you start working, you start getting money, like there's a lot of opportunity now for you to spend that money on yourself and on things that you like and on things that you thought you wanted. But that sort of existence is a little bit futile in my experience. It goes so far and then you are just left empty because I think that there is something about giving that really fills you in a way that receiving or taking does not. She talks a lot about generosity in this book, and I think for her, it's in the context of giving back to the land, giving and sharing your food and resources with other people in your community, or maybe even outside of your community. It's like the New Year's here. Generosity is something that I really want to focus on and think about, and also just like enact in my life, like not just think about, but actually embody, because I really think about how blessed I am with the things that I have and the things that I've been given by other people, as well as like the things that I'm able to generate on my own. And I just feel like it's such a waste and it's such a shame to kind of keep that stagnant to myself. There's a biblical parable about 3 different people who get differing number of talents. And the talents are forms of currency during that time. The person with like 5 talents makes 5 talents more, and the person with 2 talents makes 2 talents more. And they're both praised for their work, even though they have differing amount of money or differing amount of resources or talents, both like literally and figuratively. And then there's the one person who has 1 talent, and instead of investing in that and doing something with it, they just go and bury it. out of fear that like the master is going to be mad. I don't know, I forgot. He has some like lame excuse. And I really don't want to get to the end of my life and have all of these blessings that are given to me, whether it's my actual like financial ability or the knowledge that I've gained about certain things or my love for writing and for words and for reading. I really don't want those things to go to waste. And I don't want those things to go to waste in other people either. I think in being generous, it really defies the fear of scarcity. I think a lot of us operate out of that because we probably have like generational Asian trauma of like our parents and our grandparents were poor and they had to like scavenge for food and for resources and they literally had to start from nothing. And I've like talked about this in a different video too, but I think we are in a new time where we are really enriched with a lot of resources. I just think about how there are people who have way more than I do, and there are people who have way less than I do, and I can't really control that necessarily. Like, I can't really just wake up one day and decide, oh, I want to be a billionaire. Like, I'm sure I could try my best, like make a bunch of money and stuff, but that's not the point. Like, I think we're all given our lots in life. I just don't want to get to the end of that and have squandered everything that I have. I think that this book really got me thinking about that again and sort of confirmed that like that is the direction that I want to go in being giving. Like, I know this book talks a lot about giving in sort of a metaphysical way because like you're giving to the earth and that's like sort of a, I would argue, kind of anthropomorphic. Although like she would say that that's the point, like the earth is alive and they're not just inanimate objects. But either way, I think the whole giving thing was very emphasized in this book for good reason. But yeah, so those are like a lot of the quotes that I liked. I feel like there were a couple more. Okay, I'm gonna try to read my own handwriting, but there are no guarantees. Gratitude comes first, but gratitude alone is not enough. Other beings are known to be especially gifted with attributes that humans lack. Other beings can fly, see at night, rip open trees with their claws, make maple syrup. What can humans do? We may not have wings or leaves, but we humans do have words. Language is our gift and our responsibility. I've come to think of writing as an act of reciprocity with the living land. Words to remember old stories, words to tell new ones, stories that bring science and spirit back together to nurture our becoming people made of corn. Okay, the made of corn thing, it's like she talks about a different traditional indigenous story about how human beings were created, and there's one category of people that were made of like wood and stone, and one category that's made of light, and one category that's made of corn, and basically the people who were made of corn were the only ones who were really like sustained in this whole thing because they actually were thankful to the earth and gave back. But anyway, this really, really struck a chord with me because I don't know who this woman is. I don't know anything about her. I just know that she has some sort of property in New York and she is very into botany and she has a lot of indigenous wisdom according to this book. But I can extrapolate that this woman is a poet. She is a poet and she is an artist with her words. Just from the way that she writes, I can just tell. This like passage really spoke to me because what really distinguishes us from like animals? Like we can build things, we can do things, like whatever, we have feelings. But I think, yeah, one of the biggest key differences is that we have spoken language. And I think that is like one of the most fascinating, most beautiful things about the human race. I grew up loving the whole realm of words. I loved reading. I love writing. I still do. It's just a gift. Like it's such a gift. If you think about like the way that stories have shaped the world and how they continue to be a source of hope, a source of fear, a source of just our entire lives, how things are better conveyed through stories. It's just so fascinating. This is the gift that we have as humans, and I love that. Yeah, so I think this book was great. It took a lot of growing onto me for me to like this book, but I do think it touched really well on like capitalistic, consumeristic individualism versus sort of a more altruistic and holistic collectivism, and like giving versus taking. And human beings versus nature. I do really love when she goes into depth about certain mechanisms in nature. It's so fascinating because you really see like there's such a design to things. I remember she was talking about how if you grow like beans, corn, and squash together, they just like work somehow so that they grow better than they would grow just on their own. Sounds like there's a lesson in there for us to learn. I really liked this book. The next review that I do hopefully will be soon on Cast, but for now, I also love this design because come on, that's so beautiful. Plus the like sage green bookmark and like the frayed edges, just all those things are cherry on top. Also, the inside of this book is like this beautiful burgundy burnt ochre color. I don't know, whoever designed this, they did a great job. So if you were to judge this book by its cover, you'd be spot on with the judgment, which is that it's a beautiful book. So if you have the patience for it, you should read it. If you don't, then maybe look up a summary. But I don't know. This is one of those books where because she's such a poet with her words, it really is an experience you just gotta read yourself. So yeah, that's all. Goodbye.